Welcome to Midnight Mystery. Tonight we delve into the legend and controversy surrounding Elizabeth Bathory, the notorious figure shrouded in mystery and debate. Join us as we explore the life of a woman who was both a noble woman and an alleged serial killer. Her story a tapestry of historical facts and dark legends. We'll examine the social backdrop of her time, the accusations of heinous crimes, and the cultural impact she has had through the ages. Prepare to unlock the secrets of Elizabeth Bathory's enigmatic past on tonight's edition of Midnight Mystery. Elizabeth Bathory was born on August 7, 1560, into the prominent Bathory family, which wielded immense power in Hungary. From a young age, she received a comprehensive education, mastering 4 languages: Latin, German, Hungarian, and Greek, and had an in-depth understanding of classical literature and mathematics. Additionally, she displayed a unique personality, disliking being treated as a traditional lady and instead demanding to be treated like a boy. She often dressed in men's clothing, learning fencing and horsemanship, playing boys' games, and was quite the tomboy. This unique upbringing shaped her resolute and brave character. In 1571, at the age of 11, Elizabeth became engaged to 16-year-old Frederick Nadasdy, Baron of Sarvar. Both families were powerful and well-matched. In 1575, 15-year-old Elizabeth and 19-year-old Ferenc held a grand wedding at the castle in Verano, with about 500 guests invited. After the marriage, Ferenc gifted Elizabeth Cactus Castle, located in the Little Carpathians, and 17 surrounding villages as a wedding present. As a Hungarian National War hero, Ferenc was often away at war, and Elizabeth managed business affairs and the surrounding villages, public matters in his stead. Despite possessing immense wealth, she was meticulous with finances, even directing the purchase of 3 strings of onions. In terms of public welfare, she invested heavily, revitalizing domestic education, establishing hospitals and Protestant schools, sponsoring students abroad, and safeguarding the rights of peasants and the church, earning high praise from the king and the people. The king even commanded his own daughter to learn from her. In 1601, Ferenc was disabled by a leg injury, and in 1603, he fell seriously ill. During this time, a chaplain with the army began to accuse Elizabeth of atrocities. It is said that her abusive maids became increasingly cruel, often flying into a rage over trivial matters. Once, simply because a maid accidentally wrinkled a garment while tidying up. Elizabeth ordered the maid to be tied to a pillar and whipped severely until she was covered in injuries. These cruel acts caused dissatisfaction and fear among those around her, but due to her noble status, people dared not speak out. After Ferenc's death in 1604, Elizabeth seemed to change. She was accused of luring local peasant girls to the castle with high salaries, claiming to teach them court etiquette. These knave girls met a terrible fate once they entered the castle. It is said that Elizabeth, along with her 4 servants, would kill these girls using various cruel methods. Some girls had their throats slit, blood flowing everywhere. Others were chopped into pieces, struggling in pain on the ground. Moreover, she turned her sights on noble girls. She invited noble girls from declining families to visit, and then imprisoned them, subjecting them to the same atrocities. Elizabeth was believed to think that bathing in the blood of young girls could preserve her youth. In the castle's basement, she ordered the girls to be tied up, cut their bodies to bleed daily, and then bathed in this blood. The girls gradually lost their lives in endless fear and pain, while Elizabeth was immersed in her mad fantasy, trying to retain her youth through this cruel method. The castle was filled with the smell of blood, as if it had turned into a terrifying hell. In 1610, Hungarian Prime Minister George Thurzo received accusations of Elizabeth's atrocities. Given the severity of the matter, he personally ordered an investigation. When investigators entered Elizabeth's castle, they were shocked by the sight. They found one dead girl, one dying girl, and a large group of imprisoned girls. In addition, dozens of skeletons were found in the castle, some even hidden in conspicuous wardrobes. According to the investigation, most of these victims were local peasant daughters aged 10 to 14 and some noble girls. Elizabeth and her 4 servants, accused as accomplices, were arrested and put on trial. During the trial, the testimonies of the 4 accomplices varied, and the number of victims was inconsistent, with some saying 36 or 37, and others saying 50 or 51, roughly around 43. However, the Hungarian authorities estimated the number of victims to be 80. There are also claims that she killed more than 650 people, but this death toll is still controversial based on current evidence. In the end, considering Elizabeth's noble status, the court did not sentence her to death, but instead imprisoned her alone in Kashtis Castle. She was placed in a suite, with the room surrounded by brick walls, leaving only a small crack for ventilation and food delivery. During her more than 3 years of imprisonment, Elizabeth tried to scrape together everything she could to survive in the castle. On August 20, 1614, Elizabeth complained to her guard that her hands were cold, and the guard replied, "Don't worry, ma'am, go take a rest." So Elizabeth went to sleep, and the next day, people found that she had died. Elizabeth's life ended in such a tragic way, and her crimes have become a dark and terrifying memory in history. Against the backdrop of the society at that time, the nobility had great privileges. As a noble, Elizabeth Bathory lived in a superior environment from a young age and was accustomed to her high status. This sense of privilege made her believe she could do whatever she wanted, lacking the proper respect for the lives of the lower classes. The huge social gap between the nobility and the commoners made her think that her atrocities against peasant girls would not be severely punished. At that time, society was generally filled with superstitions and absurd notions, such as the belief that bathing in the blood of young girls could preserve youth. Elizabeth was deeply influenced by this belief, and to satisfy her desire for eternal youth, resorted to extremely cruel means. This superstitious belief provided some psychological support for her criminal acts to a certain extent. The power of the nobility was almost unchecked at the time. Although Elizabeth's atrocities caused dissatisfaction and fear among those around her, due to her noble status, people dared not speak out. The lack of an effective supervisory mechanism allowed her criminal acts to continue for a long time. At the same time, the law also seemed weak when facing noble crimes, and she was only imprisoned alone, without more severe punishment. Elizabeth's husband, Ferenc, was often away at war, and the social unrest and unease brought by war also affected her psychologically. In this unstable environment, people's moral concepts and legal awareness might be weakened, providing fertile ground for the breeding of criminal acts. In addition to social factors, Elizabeth's personal psychology was also severely distorted. Her cruel abuse of maids, and later the bloody massacre of young girls, showed her inner coldness and cruelty. Perhaps the long-term noble life made her arrogant, or perhaps other unknown reasons led to her psychological perversion. Many historians have questioned the crimes of Elizabeth Bathory. First, in the subsequent developments after the case was exposed, there were many illogical aspects. Hungarian Prime Minister George Thurzo accused Elizabeth's 4 close servants of being accomplices and participating in multiple abuse incidents. However, in their testimonies, the number of girls Elizabeth harmed varied, with significant differences. This made people doubt the authenticity of these testimonies. Secondly, the dead, dying, and imprisoned girls mentioned in the investigation report might just be one-sided words. Many people who often visited the castle, including 2 family teachers present at the time, later admitted that there were no such situations in the castle. This further deepened people's doubts about whether Elizabeth really committed such terrible crimes. At the same time, some views suggest that Elizabeth may have been stigmatized. British writer Anushka Bailey questioned of the authenticity of the legend in her new book, suggesting that Countess Bathory might have been a threat to royal power. There is evidence that Countess Bathory not only taught women to read, but also owned a printing press, which was considered radical heresy at the time. Bailey believes that this horror legend might have been fabricated by the powerful to stigmatize this woman who could pose a threat to them. The famous Hungarian Blood Countess remains a mystery to this day, and perhaps we will never be able to determine whether she really committed those cruel crimes. However, these disputes also lead us to think more deeply about the power struggles and social realities of that era. In the fields of literature, film, and games, Elizabeth Bathory has become an eye-catching cultural symbol with her unique image and legendary story. In the game, Fatale Grand Order, Elizabeth is summoned as a servant. She has unique skill settings, such as sadistic charm A, which can increase the attack power of all allies, and the attack power of all female allies except herself will also be increased. Her treasure, Bathory Elizabeth, the Blood Countess, launches a powerful attack on all enemies that ignores defense and inflicts curses and reduced success rates for strengthening. In the game, she is loved by many players for her cute image. Although her overall strength may be slightly insufficient compared to some top servants, she can exert good combat power in specific scenes, adding rich color to the player's gaming experience. In the film industry, works based on Elizabeth often show her beauty and cruelty. In The Blood Countess, her beauty and complex character are vividly portrayed. She wears gorgeous clothes, showing a noble temperament in the castle, but at the same time, due to her crazy pursuit of eternal youth, she inflicts various tortures on innocent girls, creating a strong visual impact and psychological shock. The film allows the audience to understand this controversial, historical figure more deeply through exquisite pictures and exciting plots. In addition, in some literary works, Elizabeth often appears as a vampire. Her story is endowed with mysterious colors and has become a classic theme in horror literature. Her cruel actions and thirst for blood provide rich material for literary creation and stimulate the imagination of authors. In summary, Elizabeth Bathory's image in the cultural field is rich and diverse, showing both her beauty and nobility, as well as her cruelty and madness. Her story not only makes us feel the thickness and mystery of history, but also leads us to think deeply about human nature, power, and social reality. In modern times, the story of Elizabeth Bathory has attracted the attention of many historians and scholars. They study her life from different perspectives, trying to solve historical mysteries. Some scholars explore the deep-seated reasons for Elizabeth's criminal behavior by deeply analyzing the social background, political situation, and cultural atmosphere at the time. For example, some studies point out that Hungarian society was in a state of turmoil at the time, with war, religious conflicts, and political struggles intertwined, which may have had a significant impact on Elizabeth's psychology. At the same time, modern scholars have also re-examined Elizabeth's educational background and growth experience. Was her comprehensive education and unique character training related to her later behavior? Some scholars believe that Elizabeth's resolute and brave character may have led to her extreme behavior to some extent. In addition, scholars have also studied the legal system and social supervision mechanisms at the time to understand why Elizabeth could get away with her crimes for a long time. The story of Elizabeth Bathory still has a wide influence in modern culture. Her image continues to appear in movies, games, and literary works, becoming an important symbol in popular culture. For example, in some horror novels and movies, Elizabeth is often depicted as an evil vampire, and her castle has become a symbol of horror and mystery. The continuation of this cultural image reflects people's continued interest in horror, mystery, and taboo topics. At the same time, Elizabeth's story also leads people to think about women's power, gender roles, and social morality. In some works, Elizabeth is shaped into a female image that resists traditional gender roles. Although her behavior is extreme, it also reflects her pursuit of freedom and power. This reinterpretation of the female image provides some inspiration for gender equality and the feminist movement in modern society. From a psychological perspective, Elizabeth Bathory's behavior has also attracted people's attention. Some psychologists believe that her cruel behavior may be related to her psychological disorders. For example, she may have antisocial personality disorder, narcissistic personality disorder, or other psychological diseases. Through psychological analysis of Elizabeth, we can better understand the complexity and vulnerability of the human psyche. In addition, Elizabeth's story also provides us with some insights into human nature and morality. Her behavior reminds us that power and wealth do not guarantee a person's moral character. If human desires and ambitions are not controlled, they may lead to extremely terrible consequences. At the same time, we should also pay more attention to mental health, detect and treat psychological problems in time to avoid similar tragedies. The life of Elizabeth Bathory is full of legendary colors and disputes. From her noble birth to her unique experiences during her growth, and then to the bloody crimes she was accused of later, her story has become an indelible mark in history. Her childhood education cultivated her resolute and brave character, but it may also have laid the fuel for her extreme behavior later. In her married life, she showed excellent management skills when her husband was away, but after her husband's death, she seemed to fall into madness. The investigation and trial against her revealed various problems in society at the time, such as social class differences, superstitious beliefs, lack of supervision, and the impact of war. At the same time, the distortion of her personal psychology should not be ignored. Historical disputes have led us to think more about her crimes. The doubt of evidence and the possibility of stigmatization make us unable to determine whether she really committed those cruel crimes. In the cultural field, she has become an eye-catching symbol. Her image in games, movies, and literary works is rich and diverse, showing both beauty and nobility, as well as cruelty and madness. Modern research analyzes her from academic, cultural, and psychological perspectives. Scholars try to solve historical mysteries and explore the deep-seated reasons for her criminal behavior. The continuation of her story in modern culture leads people to think about women's power, gender roles, and social morality. Psychological analysis also provides us with insights into human nature and morality. The story of Elizabeth Bathory is a complex historical puzzle. It reflects the dark side of society at the time and allows us to have a deeper understanding of the weaknesses of human nature. Regardless of whether her crimes are true, she has become an unforgettable figure in the long river of history, reminding us to be vigilant against the abuse of power, the dangers of superstition, and the importance of psychological issues.